Hi guys, it's Tamara. Welcome back to my channel. We're going to start a new topic this week, and our new topic is going to be about counseling and psychotherapy in the general sense. I've gotten lots of emails lately on my website, anchoredknowledge.com, about counseling and psychotherapy. And one of the reasons I think this is happening is because school is out, and a lot of kids aren't doing summer school this year, at least where I am, they're not. And so I've noticed like a lot of parents trying to get their kids in the flow of, enjoying some of their summer, but then at the same time, just trying to explore therapy so that when they go into the new school year, they will be ready. So it's not only families that are coming to me with these questions, but also individuals, people who just want to spend their summer kind of redefining who they are and developing themselves personally. So I figured I would focus on counseling and psychotherapy this week. You're going to get a video from me today, which is Monday, and then Wednesday, and then Friday. So you're going to get a whole week of videos focused on counseling and psychotherapy, and then we're going to jump starting Monday of next year into the new topic. Okay, so I want to make this video short for you and succinct, so let's go ahead and get started, all right? So the benefits for you today in this video is going to be that you're going to be able to identify, I should say, I was going to say define, but I changed that. So you're going to be able to identify questions that you might have to ask your own therapist, or that you should probably ask your own therapist. You're also going to be able to define the definition of counseling and psychotherapy, and also learn some new things, I'm sure. All right, so I have a list here of questions that I wrote down from all the emails that I got. So I'm just going to read them off and I'm going to answer them. Okay, so the first question I got, guys, this is just, I didn't even know if I should even answer this question on camera, but I had to because it was funny. And then in some situations, it's really real, so I probably should answer it. All right, so here's the question. You ready for this one? The question is, can I date my therapist? Can I date my therapist? All right, so this is an ethical as well as a legal dilemma. And here's why. So the American Counseling Association is basically the foundation or organization or association that supports, educates, certifies, and promotes counselors, psychotherapists, people who provide counseling and psychotherapy. But then we also have the American Psychological Association, and they typically support psychologists. They have more of a focus on doctors and what psychologists and researchers and scientific investigations involve, or what they do, okay? So both the American Psychological Association and both the American Counseling Association, both of them, ACA and the APA, say that any kind of dating, whether it's with the direct client, whether it's with the direct family member, extended family, that dating is strongly prohibited, okay? Now, if you go to the ethics code, because we all as professionals have an ethics code, okay? My ethics code is directly related to the American Counseling Association. They highly prohibit any kind of relationship, dating, marriage, sexual, with a client or the client's extended family, okay? Basically what that means is no dating, right? Now, this issue is pretty complicated because there are situations where the ethics code says, okay, you can date, but you're gonna have to date after a certain amount of time. So if I'm not mistaken, I think the American Psychological Association says 5 years after. 5 years after treatment has stopped is when you're free to date. But the psychologist still has to look at the pros and the cons of doing so. And they also have to look at the fact that, is this really going to be a beneficial relationship, or will this turn into an exploitive relationship for me and this individual. The American Counseling Association, I think, also has a certain number of years, but I think they more explicitly say absolutely not, okay? So there are a variety of associations that have a different view of dating your therapist, and for the most part, it's a no. And there's a variety of reasons for that. If you guys are interested, I will give you a little bit more information down in the comments section. Just ask me and I'll be willing to target that question and give you the answer. But to answer this person's question directly, can I date my therapist? The question is, it depends. And it also depends on state legal and ethical laws, right? So in my state, I think it's like a total of 7 years. At the time that you stop treatment, you have to wait 7 years, and then after 7 years, okay, you can go for it. But is this going to still be a beneficial relationship? It's up to the licensed professional who has a lot of power and authority to figure out which is which and what should happen and not happen. Okay, so that's the answer to that question. Woo, that's a hard question, but I figured I would tackle that one first. Okay, so the next question was, will my therapist teach me? One of the things that you need to know when you're going in for psychotherapy is that not all therapists have an educational style. Now, when you come to see me for therapy, I tend to educate you, okay? I listen a lot. I try to define things to you a lot. I try to explain things. I try to give you knowledge ahead of the, ahead of the gun. I'm just going to say that because nothing else is coming to my mind. But yeah, I try to get you as far ahead as I can just by educating you and giving you information and teaching you what terms mean and teaching you what this means and teaching you what could happen, right? Not every therapist has that. So what you want to do is before you go in for your first counseling session, if you can by email or phone or text, go ahead and ask that therapist, do you provide education along the way? All right, so I think that's a very good question. Thank you for that. The next one is, can I be friends with my therapist? Again, this is going back to the can I date my therapist again. It just depends on the situation. It depends on the laws and the ethical standard that professional is held to, okay? When you're thinking of a therapist, a psychotherapist, a counselor, you have to keep in mind that if they have a license in that state, if they are nationally certified, if they are providing a service to the community, it's going to be very difficult for them to not only date, but also be a friend. And one of the reasons is because we try as professionals to avoid what's called dual relationships. Dual relationships are two relationships happening in one situation. So you can't be your husband's therapist and his wife, right? They have two different duties. A wife is there to provide the emotional, psychological, and even sexual support. A psychotherapist is someone who provides the emotional, educational, and relational support without the sexual component. And so when you have a therapist who is playing two roles at the same time, those boundaries and those roles blend together, and before you know anything, everything becomes so murky that nothing is beneficial to the person who really needs it. So can I date my therapist? Again, most likely not. Can I be friends with my therapist or he or she with me? Most likely not. Okay, it's really murky. So, it's a lot of figuring out what's what and doing what's in the best interest of the person who doesn't have authority, okay? The next question, this is another one, okay, guys? This one is, can my therapist come to my wedding? So this person, thank you for this, by the way. This person emailed me about 2 months ago, and I've been so busy that I haven't had time to answer your question. So thank you for giving me this question. I think this, again, goes back to, can I be friends with my therapist? Can I date my therapist? When we're talking about, can I bring my therapist to my wedding? There are 3 things that you want to be aware of, okay? Whether it's a wedding, a birthday, a party, or or family reunion, whatever it might be, there's 3 things I want you to be aware of, okay? The first thing is dual relationship. Is this therapist providing a service to me by coming to my wedding, right? How can this be my therapist and yet at the same time be somebody who comes to my wedding? Are we friends now? Are we confidants now? Like, what's going on here? This is a one-way relationship, right? A one-way relationship. You know nothing about the therapist unless they divulge some things, but you don't have a lot of information about the therapist. The therapist has a lot of information on you. So, whether that's from you telling them or them pulling records, whatever. So it's a one-way relationship. Somebody who comes to your wedding, do you really want somebody who knows everything, just about everything about you, to come to your wedding? Are you going to be anxious if they start talking to somebody else? Do you really want your grandpa to know that you go to therapy? Do you want your husband's cousin to know that that's your therapist? Like, there's a lot of murkiness in there. And so it really does depend, again, on the situation. It depends on the therapist who has the authority, in that particular situation. Okay. The next question is, can I ask my therapist personal questions? Can I ask my therapist personal questions? This is a good question. Thank you for this one as well, because for me, being a child and family therapist, I get asked questions all the time. How old are you? What race are you? Are you married? Do you live at home with your mom? Do you have a close relationship with your mom? Like, I get questions all the time, okay? And one of the reasons why is because I'm a child and family therapist, and their way of bonding with me is to know a little bit about me. That can be really murky, because maybe I don't want to tell you that, my husband is someone who, is a surgeon, okay? And maybe I don't want you to know my husband works at Children's Hospital. Maybe I don't want you to know that I'm like part Indian and part African American. Maybe I don't want you to know that my father's side is German, or my mother's side is Indian and Native American, right? Maybe I don't want you to know that. If I want you to know that, I will divulge that information. If I don't, you're going to see me put the brakes on. So my suggestion to you in this case is to figure out, what kind of a personality does my therapist have? What's her duty in this situation? And do I really need to know this information? What is it going to do for me, right? Is it going to make me feel more comfortable? Is it going to, cause me to feel superior because now I know a little bit of information about you too? Like, what is this, right? So you want to ask yourself that. The other thing is that not all therapists will give that information. Now, I just told you a little bit about me. I didn't have a problem with that. But let's say, someone comes in and it's a man and they ask me if I'm married. Now I'm going to be like, wait a minute, you're stepping over your boundaries, right? If I have a 7 or 8 year old ask me, are you married? Then that might be a little bit different. So here I go again. I'm straddling the fence. I'm looking at the gray. I'm not being black and white. I'm looking at the gray. It depends, okay? So you just want to kind of be mindful that it depends. It just depends. It's one of those situations. All right, the next question that I have, guys, which is great, is my therapist's self-disclosure okay? Is my therapist's self-disclosure okay? Self-disclosure is a therapist divulging information about themselves without you asking for it. Is that okay? It depends on the therapist. It depends on their style. I provide self-disclosure to my adolescent clients who are struggling with a very difficult situation: dating, parents, arguments, confrontation with peers, getting into college, doing well in school, parents wanting to homeschool, right? So in those kind of situations, I do give information without them asking, and I find that it's not only helpful, but it's also directive, right? It gives them some direction and also provides kind of like a foundation for them. There are some therapists who certainly self-disclose way too much, and it's very uncomfortable. They tell you about their cousin being in prison, or they tell you about their marriage that fell apart because their husband had an affair, right? So, some mental health professionals give too much and some don't give enough. So again, this depends on style. Is it okay? I think it is. Again, it depends. It depends. Go with your intuition. I think you'll know when the information is way left field. Okay. And then, I would kind of step back from that therapist just a little bit if they're divulging too much information and it's making you uncomfortable. The next question is, how can I tell my therapist is unethical? How can I tell my therapist is unethical? Well, one way that you can tell is if they are coming on to you sexually, romantically, it's inappropriate, right? Again, a dual relationship, it's illegal and an ethical issue. You cannot date your therapist it's a legal and ethical issue. It really just does depend, okay? So in that case, how do you know if your therapist is unethical? Number one, they're coming on to you. They're interested in you romantically and they're making that known. That's a huge boundary violation, especially if it's unwanted from you. The other thing is no awareness of themselves, no awareness of how much information about themselves that they're giving you. If they're giving you way too much information and it's making you uncomfortable, that's a boundary violation. The other thing is clinical tools are harmful, right? So they're using essential oils on you every session and you're not getting better. You actually are getting worse. Maybe you're getting sick. Maybe you're getting dizzy. Maybe you're getting nauseous, right? And they're not taking to that in account, or they're trying to sell you these things that really doesn't have any therapeutic value. And that could be essential oils, right? Because sometimes, for the most part, it lacks research, okay? And sometimes therapists will try to push that as some kind of holistic therapy. So you want to question those kind of things, right? The other thing is blending your treatment with their clinical duties. One example of this would be, okay, you're sitting in counseling, you're in your session, and yet your therapist is typing a clinical note or on their laptop, talking to another client, or they are doing paperwork where you're trying to talk to them about something and you're crying and you're uncertain. Those are all unethical boundary violations and all unethical ways of being. Another unethical behavior is stalking, right? If you have a therapist who is stalking you online or in person, it's inappropriate, right? So you want to watch for those things. You also want to look for, there was something else I mentioned on my list here. You also want to look for a therapist who is overcharging you for each session, or charging you every time you send an email, or charging you every time you make a phone call to them. You want to ask them, what are your policies for emails, phone calls, sessions? And that should be clearly outlined in the paperwork that you signed before you became a client, okay? But if you find that your therapist is charging you out the wazoo and you don't know why, then you need to be stopping them and asking them what's going on here. So that's another unethical behavior. I actually have an article about unethical behaviors of a therapist, and I'm going to post it down in the description box below for you. That might be helpful to kind of get your mind stimulated on this topic, okay? And last but not least, this is a very good question. Can I be cured? Or can I be changed with therapy? I think one of the things that you want to keep in mind is therapy is a relational venture, and you may or may not improve. One of the goals of therapy is not only to teach you new things that you can do to help yourself, but it's also to change the way that you think about yourself, perceive yourself in the world around you, and the way that you approach things in your life. You may not get the tools that you're looking for to actually help make those changes, but you might get a very supportive, loving, caring, concerned therapist who's there to hold your hand. You may have a therapist that can give you some help depending on what the situation is in your life, right? But you're never going to go to therapy and be cured, okay? That is something to keep in mind. Therapy is not there to cure you. Therapy is there to support you and guide you and give you the tools that you need to move forward. And sometimes those tools aren't big tools. Sometimes it's one session that awakens you. Maybe it's like 9 months of sessions and then you're done. Maybe it's coming to session and just venting for a little bit and then exploring thoughts and emotions, right? So you want to keep a realistic view of therapy. You're not going to be cured. You're not going to be 100% changed, but you will gain some things if you have a good therapist that might be helpful for you. All right, guys, so thanks so much for being with me today. Hang in there because we're going to do another video about counseling and psychotherapy. I'm actually going to give you a definition of what it is, because sometimes people have a misconceived notion of what psychotherapy is. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up on Wednesday here. I encourage you guys, if you could, to give this video a thumbs up. What that does is it pushes the video up to the search results in YouTube, and it gives other people access to videos like this. If it was helpful to you, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you want to get alerts that tells you when I post new videos. Okay, guys? So I look forward to talking to you about this topic. This is an interesting topic, and I like educating people about it, so stay tuned. All right, guys, I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.